Well, people are freaking out over a new year-long reporting piece from journalist Ronan Farrow on Twitter ex-CEO Elon Musk that appeared in The New Yorker yesterday. Farrow makes the case that Elon Musk's influence over the United States government is, quote, brazen and expansive, and investigates the United States' dependence on the tech billionaire in a variety of issue areas, including the war in Ukraine and space exploration. Now, Farrow calls it Elon Musk's shadow rule, how the U.S. government came to rely on the tech billionaire and is now struggling to rein him in. According to The New Yorker, over the past year, Musk has, quote, grown increasingly uneasy with the fact that his technology was being used for warfare. SpaceX said, "We are not in a position to further donate terminals to Ukraine or fund the existing terminals for an indefinite period of time." The New Republic tweeted, reporting for The New Yorker, Ronan Farrow finds a concerned Pentagon at the center of the terminally online mogul Elon Musk, the battlefield resources under his control.
The online reaction to Farrow's reporting is strong. MSNBC's Mehdi Hassan quoted from the article saying, "One Pentagon spokesperson said that he was keeping Musk apprised of my inquiries about his role in Ukraine and would grant an interview with an official about the matter only with Musk's permission. We'll talk to you if Elon wants us to," he told me, Farrow writes. Mueller, she wrote, tweeted, Ronan Farrow's expose on Musk is out. It's a must read. Here are some standout moments. Musk deliberately throttled Starlink, the communication system Ukraine was relying on in battle. He held it hostage for $400 million at critical points in the war. Musk had spoken to Putin before this decision, and right around that time, he came up with his peace plan, which is essentially the same as Russia and Trump's, give Russia chunks of Ukraine. His pro-Putin stance aligns with his goals in China, keep China happy because that's where he makes Teslas. Beijing disapproved of Musk helping Ukraine because they lend support to Russia. That explains Musk's desire to hand Taiwan over to China.
So look, I am not some kind of Elon Musk fanboy. In fact, I see a lot of people on the right who are frustrated with some of the most recent stuff, with specifically to Twitter. Getting rid of the blocking feature is something that no one seems happy about, frankly. No one, right, left, middle, no one likes this idea. It seems like a lot of the policies that we didn't like, the shadow banning, are just continuing under this Linda Yaccarino. So look, I am not biased in favor or against Elon Musk. A lot of what they came after him, and obviously a billionaire exerting a lot of influence over our political system is not good. The concerns that we have about how he would treat Chinese demands for censorship, given his entanglement with that government, that's something Batya talked a lot about on our show. I totally agree with it. It is deeply concerning. All that said, his peace plan, it's Russian propaganda. His peace plan is my peace plan. It's perfectly legitimate, and exerting some pressure on the U.S. government to work against their stated mission of funding this war effort until the end of time doesn't seem to me particularly nefarious. I see why it seems nefarious to a very mainstream liberal perspective, that, the Ukraine flag in your bio perspective, that, no amount of weapons or funding is ever enough, and we must, defend every inch of Ukraine. So of course it would, Elon Musk is betraying the cost by not, giving free internet access to Ukraine in the midst of this war effort forever. I'm sure that's their perspective, but it's not really my perspective. So I don't find this nearly as nefarious as outlined.
So I would agree with that, but I would frame it differently, which is that despite probably being closer to Musk on Ukraine than I am with the establishment, and being closer to him on that issue than probably any other issue, it is deeply disturbing to me that someone, because of their immense wealth, being the richest person in the world, et cetera, and because of their influence in the technological realm in particular, and because of the reliance of our government and security interests on these kind of private-public partnerships, that one human being could have any influence at all over the course of American diplomatic efforts. So even if I tend to agree that his influence is, let's say, for the sake of argument, positive in the context of Russia-Ukraine, even you seem to agree with me that his influence with respect to, let's say, China or India on speech matters, which we've already seen play out to some extent, could be very pernicious. And certainly those things are about what he does on his own website in terms of content moderation. His ability to influence what happens in a wartime footing in the United States of America has to be of issue to people. That has to be a concern. The idea also that he's taking policy positions that I might agree with, but are based on him wanting to maintain positive business relationships in the country where he happens to build his cars, not on any principle of what's good for Americans at large, not on any principle, without any accountability the way that we ostensibly sort of have through our democratic processes with Congress members who vote certain ways or presidents which we can vote out of office, but simply because he's the richest person in the world. That doesn't disturb you?
Well, so, I mean, imagine a world, I guess, in which there is no specific person exerting that pressure on the U.S. government, so then they're just totally unconstrained to keep, I guess the giving internet to Ukrainians is let's say Elon Musk properties are like nationalized or something, and then the U.S. government would just have more free reign to do this without any. Like, this is a force pushing back on that, and I'm saying that's a good thing, and you seem to be saying that's a bad thing because it should just be because the U.S. government is so accountable to us, the people who want less war. That seems fanciful to me.
I think that it's extremely dangerous to have unaccountable billionaires making public policy.
I mean, do we have an accountable government making public policy?
The goal should be working toward making government more accountable, not hoping that, again, we're back to this kind of Mothra versus Godzilla analogy. Yeah. I don't know that you throw another monster in and I'm not saying he's an actual monster, but for the sake of this analogy, you throw another monster into the mix and hope everything works out as they destroy all of Tokyo. The political problems that we suffer, we have this conversation all the time, Robby.
Yeah.
In my view, the political problems that we are experiencing, where the government is also not reflecting the interests of many Americans. Although I will say the country is pretty divided on Ukraine. It's not as if there's some overwhelming majority of people who want us to withdraw from Ukraine. But to the extent that there are a lot of other issues that the government is not responsive to popular will on, per the 2014 Princeton study that shows that we do not live in a democracy and that there's basically no relationship between what the people want and what Congress actually prioritizes and passes.
Right.
To the extent that exists, that is also largely because of the influence of people like Elon Musk and the fact that that the donations of a very small percentage of people, because of unfettered corporate spending, because of Citizens United, whatever you think of the speech implications of that, the political implications of that are that a small number of very rich people get to decide the policy of the United States of America. And there's no more one person, one vote kind of a rule. And if you believe that you were right about Ukraine, it seems to me that the democratic way to go about it is convincing Americans to agree with us and then convincing them to make that belief represented in the polls through the democratic process.
Well, I mean, that's what we're doing. We
right, and that's what we do. But I think that relying on Elon Musk, okay, it's a happy accident he agrees with us on one thing, on one sliver of a thing, but you're willing to say that he should have all that unbridled power. Because remember, this article goes well beyond talking about the specific issue of Russia-Ukraine. There are other national security issues that come up where the quote that we read at the beginning that says, like, I'll talk to you if Musk deigns it to be appropriate. There's a conversation about how his capricious decision-making has negatively affected his businesses and caused there to be all these health and safety concerns with self-driving cars, Teslas,
et cetera. A lot of it is the Teslas are subsidized aggressively by the federal government. I would end all subsidies tomorrow, because that does create perverse incentives between. I mean, it entangles the private sector and the government sector. We should end all of that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily. I think that especially when we're talking about climate reform and the need to really pursue certain technologies that the government unfortunately doesn't have the capacity to do independently, I wouldn't necessarily turn it off overnight. I do think, like I said in an earlier day on this show, that I think we need to be in a more of a NASA footing where we have internally to the government the technological expertise. The government should be fighting to get all of the best engineers and the like working on those kinds of projects internally, so you don't have to deal with whether or not some person's emotional maturity gets in the way of objectives that our government has decided and the people have voted should be prioritized. However, in the short term, I don't know what that looks like, but the point is, I think it stands. Musk has been capricious in his handling of Twitter, in the handling of his businesses. He seems to be motivated by a lot of ego and personal one-upmanship, as opposed to the best interest of his business, or certainly the best interest of the American government. And what is the fundamental problem here? It's not that he's a human being who might be flawed. He's not the only person with ego in the world, but he is a person with ego who also happens to be the richest person on the planet, who is able to use those resources to affect our limits of our speech on Twitter and some of the military choices, apparently, that our government is making in an anti-democratic way. If you're okay with it being Elon Musk, are you going to be okay with it if it's George Soros? Are you going to be okay if it's,
I mean, what do you mean in an anti-democratic way, though? Like it's...
Because there's no accountability for Elon Musk. He's not a part of our political process.
But he's just, I mean, he is the way everyone else is. They have to factor in what he's going to do. And that's part of the he's a figure to grapple with. He's not obligated to provide free internet to Ukraine any more than you or I or anyone else is. He was doing it, and then he said, "I'm not going to do this forever," and maybe that should bear on U.S. foreign policy, and all of that seems legitimate to me.
The argument is that the U.S. government should not be in a position where it's relying on Elon Musk. So you're right. What you're describing is the normative reality that Elon Musk can choose to stop using a satellite. Of course he can. The response from America should be, we should not be putting ourselves in a situation where we're relying on Elon Musk or any other third-party vendor for national security safety and national security interests.
It seems like relying on third-party vendors could be a good check on the war-making powers of the state.
If you're comfortable with the idea of the wokest, libest person in the world having that control, then that's a consistent stance that you can have. But the reality is that I think that most people watching this would bristle at the notion that Ilhan Omar, the billionaire version of Ilhan Omar, have the ability to influence U.S. policy
versus
unilaterally.
Total control in a committee of permanent military bureaucrats who have a deep ideological, fundamental, philosophical belief in neoconservatism.
Those people are there, and the goal should be
right.
to
And you want to give them all. You want to say every aspect of this should be controlled by them.
No, I think that we should be fighting them. We should be fighting the blob. We should be advocating for politicians that are willing to do things like defund the deep state. Mm-hmm. And that's how you get at the root of that problem.
We're all on board. Let's defund it.
Not invest any random billionaire with the ability to make anti-democratic decisions.
All right, we'll have more Rising right after this.